This is CBC Here and Now.
I'm told it concerns bullying, harassment, nepotism, a whole bunch of issues.
I'm not privy to any report. There's been no report delivered to the executive.
Questions tonight about whether there's been an investigation into a senior official at Elections NL and where the report detailing the allegations ended up.
Kind of makes me upset just because they don't notice the importance of it, and some people think it's not cool, but like the scar I got in the side of my head isn't really cool either.
He needs a hole bored in his head. The treatment for this is bore a hole in his head and let out that bleeding.
A Burin Peninsula man is sharing his story after seeing kids on bikes without helmets. Had it not been for a quick-thinking doctor with a drill, he would have died after fracturing his skull riding his bike without a helmet. Taylor Jackson's incredible story is coming up. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. The Transportation Safety Board is sounding the alarm today on a problem plaguing the fishing industry in this province. The TSB says DFO has been issuing fishing licenses without checking if boats are registered with Transport Canada. As Ryan Cook reports, it's a gap that could have made a difference in a fishing disaster 2 years ago.
The Sarah Ann made a final ill-fated voyage on May 25, 2020. A report issued by the TSB today didn't shed much light on what happened that day, other than to say the boat likely capsized suddenly and all 4 men aboard died in the water.
At the time of the occurrence, the regulations that were applicable to the vessel, there were some deficiencies with the equipment on board.
The Sarah Ann did not have a working radio, an emergency beacon, or a proper life raft. The vessel also didn't have a stability test, which would have given the men vital information about how the boat could tip. But the men might not have known what was required of them because their vessel was not registered with Transport Canada and they were far from alone.
This investigation found that in Newfoundland and Labrador alone, there are more than 4,000 more fishing vessels registered with DFO than with Transport Canada.
That's a problem, Fox says, because they're essentially fishing without safety oversight. And it's not a problem that's happening in other places.
The fishing licenses are issued regionally, and so we have some regions of the country, example being Pacific, where they won't issue a fishing license until and unless they have proof that there's registration with Transport Canada. But that's not the way it was working in Newfoundland and Labrador.
DFO says it's working on a solution, but search and rescue advocate Merv Wiseman says it's been a known problem for way too long.
It speaks to the priority they have on it, because if the priority was there, it's not rocket science to get registration. It's not.
There's still a lot of unknowns about the Sarah Ann, but the TSB hopes that this recommendation will help prevent a future disaster. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, this is an emotional day for Melissa Mayo Norman. Her late husband, Scott Norman, was one of the crew members aboard the Sarah Ann. She says the captain and crew were under the impression the boat did meet all safety requirements and says the TSB's report hasn't given her any answers.
I would like to see more investigation done on the water and conducted properly, not rushed, taken as importantly as it would be on land. There's never enough done out there for considering the amount of people in Newfoundland and Labrador that fish. We wanted more of what was seen that day, what more could have been seen that day, what was available by the radars that we don't have, the radar footage.
And Melissa Mayo Norman also says that she believes there's a major disconnect between DFO and Transport Canada. She'll explain why. That's coming up in 30 minutes on Here and Now.
Well, you woke up to some snow today in Lab West. This is Dash. I'm not sure if he or she is enjoying the weather, but certainly some cool temperatures for parts of Lab West today. Temperatures only reaching about 4 degrees for you. Otherwise, reached about 10 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay and lots of high teens across the island. It did take a little while to get there, though, for eastern areas of the island, but certainly looking at those temperatures now. We do have an area of low pressure in play right now that's actually sparking some thunderstorms in and around the west coast. It did earlier today, but all of that rain has moved off, and there's a look at those thunderstorms right there that are working their way towards the Baysville Peninsula. We may see a few more rumbles of thunder tonight in some areas, but I'll break that forecast down for you coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a tangly story coming from the House of Assembly tonight. It's about whether a report has been filed about a senior official at Elections NL over allegations of bullying and other complaints. Independent and opposition MHAs are asking the Speaker of the House to confirm or deny the report's existence. Here now's Mark Quinn breaks it down for us.
Opposition leader David Brazel asked about the alleged report in the House of Assembly today, but was told by the Speaker that his question was out of order.
Mr. Speaker, is the Premier or his office aware of a report related to the conduct of an officer of this House, and if so, when was the report submitted?
Order, please. The question is not in order. It doesn't fall within the preview of the administrative competence of the executive branch, so I ask you to.
Outside of the House, Brazel spoke with reporters.
We did have a citizen reach out to say that they had made a complaint to the citizens rep about an officer of the House. We wanted to reach out and find out, is it here in the House of Assembly? Does the Speaker have it? Is the Premier aware of it? Is it at Cabinet? We know it hasn't gone to the Management Committee, which is the oversight of the House of Assembly, of which the Speaker is the chair. So we wanted to know if a citizen has made a complaint, due diligence has to be done. And if there is a report, this is the People's House. It has to be shared with the House of Assembly.
Independent MHA Paul Lane gave more details about what he has heard from a constituent. Lane said he's told the report is about complaints made about a senior officer of the House with Elections NL.
A constituent of mine who indicated that there had been a very serious whistleblower report filed with the offices of the Citizens Rep as it related to a statutory officer of the House of Assembly. I want to know, is there a report? I want to know what are the findings in this report. I'm told it concerns bullying, harassment, nepotism, a whole bunch of issues. That's what I was told. And I'm told that there was 10 findings in that report, and I'm told that it was involving 21 employees. And I'm very concerned about potentially the toxic workplace that they're working in as we speak, and has been for the last couple of months at least.
Premier Ferry was also asked about this by reporters.
I'm not privy to any report. There's been no report delivered to the executive that I'm aware of.
House of Assembly Speaker Derek Bennett declined a request to speak with reporters. He issued a statement that outlines what he's expected to do when he receives the report. But the statement doesn't deny or confirm the existence of the report described by MHAs today. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Now to some COVID news. Today is the first COVID update since the province moved to a once-a-week update. Public Health says one person has died from COVID-19 since last week. The person was over 80 in the Western Health region. Today's update says 14 people are now in hospital. 2 are in critical care. Well, pharmacists in Newfoundland and Labrador are now able to prescribe Paxlovid, an antiviral drug used to treat COVID-19. The drug had to be prescribed by a doctor or a nurse practitioner until recently, but an increased supply of the drug and changes to regulations have made it available at pharmacies. The president of the province's Pharmacists Association says it makes sense to use pharmacists to help make Paxlovid more widely available, since they were also involved with the COVID vaccination rollout. High-risk patients qualify for Paxlovid, and a positive COVID test within 5 days of first symptoms is needed. The cost of the drug is covered under MCP. Well, a major week-long festival is back in Conception Bay South this summer after being canceled for the last 2 years due to COVID. The town of CBS says its Calagrew Soiree Garden Party will go ahead in the second week of July. The event is 19 years of age and older. Early bird tickets went on sale today. Well, now to an incredible story of survival. Taylor Jackson owes his life to a household drill and one doctor's brave decision. More than a decade ago, a mishap on his bike landed Jackson in the back of an ambulance bound for St. John's. Now, today, he's stressing the importance of wearing your helmet. Jeremy Eaton has that story, but first, a warning. We'll be sharing some graphic details about Taylor's injury.
Kind of makes me upset just because they don't notice the importance of it, and some people think it's not cool, but like the scar I got in the side of my head isn't really cool either.
July 16th, 2010 started with far less drama. Jackson had been out on his field of dreams near his home in South Dildo.
Well, I woke up that morning and then I went to go to the ball field with my friends to play softball. And it was a big thing during the summer, softball.
The ride home quickly took a turn. He swears he always wore his helmet, just not on this day.
Fell off my pedal bike going down the hill by the ball field in South Dildo and struck my head. Happened so quick. I had a bad bleed on the side of my brain, fractured my skull, didn't really know it. And I rode home, and then my aunt brought me to my nan's, then my nan brought me to Whitburn.
By a stroke of pure luck, Dr. Paul Patey happened to be working here in the emergency department that day. The St. John's-based family doctor enjoyed retirement by doing locums around the province.
This was a Friday midday. There might have been three or four, but I was the one on call in emergency. I was doing a 24-hour shift at the emergency department.
Patey, a doctor with decades of experience, knew Jackson's condition would soon be fatal if they didn't move him stat.
I said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Oh, Rob." I suppose that was trying to say Taylor. I said, "Wiggle your toes." And he wiggled his toes on one side and not the other. I said, "Wiggle your hands." Same thing. I said to the nurse, "We got a catastrophe here."
But they didn't have the staff or specialized equipment here to help. They needed to rush him to St. John's. Before leaving, Patey gathered supplies.
Now we're going on the way to get him in the ambulance. And as we're going out the door, I say to myself, the poor boy, he's got all that way in the van, in the ambulance, and nobody to bore a hole in his head. And I said, "Get me a drill." But on this side is squat by this great big clot.
Patey explains that there's only so much room in the skull. Bleeding like Jackson's could crush the brain and kill him. Jackson finally goes unconscious, so Patey asks a paramedic to pull over. Using a scalpel, he opens up the scalp.
And I made a really strong, deep cut right down through the bone, right down across the bone, up here. And then I said, "Andrew, pull it apart." And Andrew put his fingers in, pulled it apart. And I took the drill and put it against the bone, pulled the trigger, and didn't take long to make a hole in that, just partway through. The bone, the skull has got a firm layer, a loose layer, and a firm layer. So I went through this, and then I went through that, and then I took it out, and cruddy old blood started coming out, like cranberry sauce.
With one problem solved, they've created another. They've got to get him to the hospital in St. John's before he bleeds to death. These days, Jackson is all smiles. With his wife, son, and stepson, he enjoys activities that were almost taken from him back in 2010.
It really surprised me because a lot of people in these actions, especially that happen in these circumstances, they don't get off scot-free like me. And like there's no side effects with me at all. Like I don't have any health problems, nothing like that. But some people aren't so lucky, especially with this type of injury.
He credits Patey with saving his life. Patey is happy to give credit to the paramedics, nurses, and hospital staff in St. John's. After seeing kids in his neck of the woods in Burin riding around without helmets, Jackson wanted to share this story.
They would just put their parents through a very bad situation that I wouldn't wish on anybody.
Jackson lives a normal life, but one thing is for sure, if he or any of these boys are on a bike, helmets are on the head.
Wearing your helmet is better than going around or having the illness or mental illness, anything at all. Like it's just as well to put it on.
Here's the drill bit, and as you can see, it's still brown and coated because that's the boy's blood on it.
Patey kept the drill bit he used to save Jackson's life, a strange keepsake from that day more than a decade ago, a reminder of Jackson's survival story.
But the best reason for putting this on is because you want to live a long, happy life. Wear your helmet for the love of living, not for the fear of dying.
Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Some great advice, and I don't know about you, but after hearing that story, I may skip the cranberry sauce during my next turkey dinner. Well, now to a different kind of rescue that was captured on camera yesterday after an RNC officer decided to pull over and investigate a case of a duck in distress. Just have a look at this. Constable Manuel Spurl pulled over on the west end of Water Street yesterday. He stopped after noticing a mother duck looking down into a sewer drain, and sure enough, he peered down and saw a couple of ducklings swimming around down there. So he set up some pylons for safety, opened the grate, and got down to business, bringing the ducks up to their waiting mom. So we think a construction worker caught the video on camera, or caught this all on camera there, and we're very glad that they did. Constable Spurl didn't want to do an interview today, unfortunately. He says saving the ducklings just seemed like the right thing to do. Well, from one animal rescue to another, an animal shelter in Western Labrador is in need of help. The Faith Haven shelter has been struggling to keep its building in working condition, and that's much harder now after the struggle it had this past winter.
Well, I just wanted to put it out there for the public to see the condition that our building is in and how desperately we need renovations in order to be able to house more animals and not have to turn any animals away. It was just one of our worst winters. You know, every winter seems to get worse. We've had some cold days. So in around January, February month, we came in twice, and our heaters had just completely shut down. Breakers had tripped. One particular time we had 2 rabbits here, and we had to offer critical care to them because we almost lost them because it was just so cold you could see your breath. A few carpenters and a few professionals, electricians, that we just need to take it right down to the stud and see what's going on with your cats. We find that many come to us in pretty rough condition. A lot of them are older, so they'll be permanent residents of the shelter. Hopefully, we just find good foster homes for them. But we always pay the bill for those animals. Last summer, we were up to approximately 48 dogs that were surrendered. We do think that it was because of the housing shortages, and people had to make a decision whether to have a roof over their head. Many were couch surfing. At that time, they didn't have a place for their animals, so there were a lot of tears over this last year especially. Our catio roof caved in and came in through one of our windows, so we had to replace that. So it was a very, very rough winter. Well, we've been talking to a few organizations, a few companies, and we're hoping that this summer we're going to see some type of improvement with the shelter itself. The goal is, of course, to have a shelter here for dogs as well. We have, with the 2 towns, we have space for 1 dog per pound. You throw in a few cats there, then we're in serious, serious trouble. And we've experienced it. We had 2 dogs that were confiscated. We had no place to put them. Sadly, 1 dog died because of it, and during that time. And 1 dog is too many, as far as I'm concerned.
We've got a 16-degree temperature difference right now across the province. As we head towards the weekend, that gap is going to close. I'll get into the full forecast coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Absolute final deadline is midnight, Friday, June 3rd. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
What a messy old day out there in St. John's when I headed into work this morning. All the rain and chilly temperatures, not very nice.
No, it wasn't very nice. But have you been outside in the last 2 hours?
No.
Well, it is definitely turned around out there today. We're at 15 degrees.
15 degrees?
15 degrees, yeah. Let's take a look at...
How does that even happen?
I
It was
know.
so cold earlier.
It was so cold earlier. Let's take a look at what happened. So we were at 4 or 5 degrees for most of the day today with those southerly winds, pouring rain for a good chunk of the afternoon. And then that rain ended and we saw that temperature warm up. So between 4 and 5 degrees, went from 9 to 13, and then even another couple of degrees from 5 and 6 o'clock this evening. So certainly beautiful out there. A nice night if you were, thinking earlier today you're not going to barbecue. You could definitely fire up that barbecue tonight. And temperatures pretty much across the board through Central or right along with it. So 17 degrees right now in Gander, 19 in Badger. Or rather, this was this afternoon's temperature, 17 in Corner Brook, and 10 degrees was the afternoon high in Happy Valley Goose Bay. And we do have some of that colder air in play as we head towards the Labrador West or Western Labrador, but that is going to stick around at least through the night tonight. So do have an area of low pressure right now. That front is what brought all of that rain with it, and right now it is sparking some thunderstorms for parts of the Bay Verte Peninsula. But there's that cold pool of air that's now moving in slowly for Lab West. So we take a look at those temperatures right now. You can definitely see it. -1 is what it is right now in Lab City, 2 in Churchill Falls. And we're going to see some of that colder air move further east as we head through the night tonight. Temperature still, though, beautiful. Badger, 18 degrees, 10 right now in Corner Brook. And then in Lassie, it's 11 degrees right now. Now, we did have some lightning this afternoon, and just taking a look at it right now, you can see it's headed towards Kings Point, and that will generally be the story as we head through at least the next couple of hours. The future tracker is picking up that system, or rather the thunderstorm cell, very well, and it is looking like it's a little bit further west there, but that's going to move through over the next couple of hours. You'll say goodbye to that. You likely won't see any lightning in behind it, but there is still that chance of a few showers as we head through the night tonight for the northern peninsula, Bay Verte Peninsula, as well as southeastern portions of Labrador. Clearing for the western portion of Labrador, but then we'll see that potential for some flurries move towards central Labrador as well as we get into the early morning hours. Overall, not a whole lot of accumulation expected. You may pick up a couple of centimeters in some of the higher elevations, but overall, that's where most of the bulk of the activity should be as we get into the early morning hours. Now, temperatures tonight for you in Happy Valley Goose Bay should hover around 2 degrees, much cooler for Lab City at -4, otherwise hovering near or just above as you head towards southeastern Labrador. So you're looking at this falling as rain. Now, along the west coast of the island, particularly in the higher elevations, we're talking about temperatures that'll be a bit cooler than this, so you may see a few flurries in the morning, but overall this should fall as rain for the rest of the west coast through central, and actually looking at a pretty nice evening for eastern areas of the island. Now, area of low pressure is going to stick with us tomorrow. Should clear out though as the day goes on. However, southeastern Labrador and the northern peninsula, again, you're still looking at unsettled conditions through the day. And again, higher elevations, don't be surprised if you see a few flurries. Eventually, things will clear out as we get into the evening hours and into the overnight as well. So temperatures tomorrow should sit in and around the double digits again, so about 12 degrees for St. John's. Winds out of the west between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. A lot more sunshine, more cloudy periods the further west you go. And again, a few showers possible for the west coast. And your winds will be a bit gusty tomorrow. So they'll be about 30 kilometers per hour, but gusting upwards of about 60. Southern areas of the island, you're looking at temperatures around 11 degrees pretty much across the board, except a little cooler in onshore flow as you head towards the west or across the Avalon rather. And then about 3 to 5 degrees for the northern peninsula. Now for Labrador, Daytime highs only in the single digits tomorrow. Mary's Harbor, again, you may see a few flurries, but things will really start to improve for Lab City. You'll hover around 9 degrees, so not quite the double digits yet with those winds out of the west, about 15 to 20 kilometers per hour, but it is looking like that warm up for the long weekend, certainly still possible. And then we're talking about double digits as well as 20-degree temperatures, and I'll have that forecast when I come back.
The Transportation Safety Board has released a report into the sinking of the fishing vessel, the Sarah Ann. More from the widow of one of the men who died coming up. Well, today the Transportation Safety Board released its report into the sinking of the fishing vessel Sarah Ann in Placentia Bay in 2020. All 4 crew members on board perished in that accident. Melissa Mayo Norman lost her husband, Scott Norman, on that day nearly 2 years ago. She joins me now from St. Lawrence. Thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Well, this time next week will mark the 2-year anniversary of the sinking of the Sarah Ann, and you now have an official report into what happened. What do you think about the TSB findings?
Well, yesterday in the meeting with the Transportation Safety Board, I mean, it was a very emotional day for all the family members of the last crew members. Of course, we were hoping for some closure, which when we didn't receive. I mean, when receiving the conclusion or a final report from the TSB, unfortunately, we were given no answers as what may have happened that day. Only what recommendations they could give for the Newfoundland fishermen. I feel the focus of the investigation was on the stability of the Sarah Ann, in which they clearly stated they had a laser scan of the hull of the sister ship, predicting the modifications made to the Sarah Ann, which were in fact submitted to the DFO, given the captain and his crew the understanding that they met all of the safety requirements to go that day.
And the Transportation Safety Board did make just one recommendation that all commercial fishing vessels register with Transport Canada. They say it's to allow for more safety oversight. Were you expecting more?
Well, considering the DFO and Transport Canada didn't collaborate regarding the Sarah Ann, I would definitely say that Eddie Joe assumed his boat was registered because it was through DFO, it was also registered through Transport Canada. I feel if there was more communications between the DFO and Transport Canada, that fishermen would be more aware of the stability requirements and the other available options. Like, for example, like the stability assessment and the PLB devices.
What more would you have liked to have seen from that report?
I would like to see more investigation done underwater and conducted properly, not rushed, taken as importantly as it would be on land. There's never enough done out there considering the amount of people in Newfoundland and Labrador that fish.
You were saying that you and the other families were hoping for some closure from this report. What would have given you that closure?
More than what we got. Guesses and lost information and stuff like that happening. We did not get the answers that we wanted, for sure. We wanted more of what was seen that day, what more could have been seen that day, what was available by the radars that we don't have, the radar footage.
So you don't have the closure that you were hoping for, not satisfied with some of the information in that report. What happens now? What's next now?
Who knows?
Next week, as I mentioned, it's going to be the 2-year anniversary of the accident. Are you planning on marking that anniversary in any way?
Yes, last year we started, so we will resume what we started last year. All of the family and friends involved that were through the whole thing, we get together, and remember them. We have anchors made that we all put in the water last year, finding that they drifted pretty far. We actually had the Never Enough, one of the boats that went out and to help with the search that night, went out the other night and dropped 4 anchors in the last known location of the Sarah Ann, so that was nice. This year we will continue to do the same. We'll put our anchors out and wait to see where they show up.
Well, Melissa Mayo Norman, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
An international ocean research center based in Halifax is promoting an ambitious observation system for the North Atlantic. The Ocean Frontier Institute compares the project to the International Space Station. Paul Withers explains.
The North Atlantic, and Labrador Sea in particular, is recognized as one of the largest carbon sinks on the planet, where carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is absorbed and stored deep in the ocean. Understanding the North Atlantic's role in mitigating the impact of greenhouse gases, one of the themes at an Ocean Frontier Institute conference underway in Halifax.
We need to reduce uncertainty in ocean carbon uptake and inventory
Scientists and business leaders gathering to argue more research is needed.
We're buying a
environmental attribute.
E-commerce company Shopify was the first to buy carbon credits from Nova Scotia X Prize winner Planetary Technologies, which wants to use purified mine tailings to neutralize carbon in the ocean.
In order for that to be something that we can rely on to allocate that against our corporate carbon footprint down the road in the future, we need monitoring, reporting, and verification protocols that give us the confidence to be a buyer.
These are big problems. OFI is promoting a big solution.
The North Atlantic Carbon Observatory is a structure that allows nations to invest in ocean observation as a consortium, the way they do in the International Space Station or with some of the international telescopes.
The plan is to bring together countries to agree on the information needed to fully understand how carbon is absorbed and what equipment is needed for an ocean observatory.
We're creating an opportunity here for nations to take their big investment in ocean observation and bring them together internationally to be way more than the sum of the parts.
All of this will take millions of dollars. Ottawa has not committed. The federal environment minister did not mention it in opening remarks, but Anya Waite says the observatory project is making progress.
The fact that we have government departments already helping us do gap analyses and the project structure suggests to me that we'll get there in the end. I mean, we're already going down the road, and we've got other nations already stepping up.
The conference continues Wednesday with a focus on the future of food from the ocean. Paul Withers, CBC News, Halifax.
Sex workers found it very hard because they couldn't avail of a lot of the federal government services like the CERB and all of that.
Many people lost their jobs during the pandemic, but one group rarely talked about didn't have a lot of help. Next, a look at a group stepping up to help sex workers. Well, the chain of tit-for-tat restrictions triggered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine has hit the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. The CBC's bureau in Moscow is being shut down by the Russian government. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau slammed Russia's treatment of the media today, but he said it's not surprising.
The truth, responsible journalism, sharing what's actually going on with citizens is a deep threat to Vladimir Putin and his illegal war and his authoritarian tendencies. Canada will always stand up for a free, strong, independent press doing its work of challenging and revealing what's going on in the world. It's unfortunate but not surprising that he's trying to shut down strong journalistic institutions. Canada will continue to support the great work of journalists here in Canada and around the world.
NDP Well, many people lost work during the pandemic, of course, and most could rely on CERB, the federal government funding program, but one group couldn't: sex workers. Tonight, we're looking at some of those who stepped up to help a group that so often lives in the shadows. We're bringing you a short documentary called On the Fringe, directed by Peter Walsh and produced by members of a film camp sponsored by Artforce and Walsh Productions.
The sex industry is very big in Newfoundland and Labrador. We strip, that's what we do.
I want people to see them as human beings.
We should always be more curious than judgmental.
We partnered up with local restaurants like Merchant Tavern and Terra Restaurant to make gourmet meals for clients, and many of those clients are sex workers.
So we're making a Turkish-style pizza. It's just a nice white bread dough. Next is a white sauce here, so it's a cream-based sauce, basically cream and onions and a bit of garlic. This is pepperoni. It's from Chinched. Cheese curds, they're not something I would usually use for pizza, but for this application, it works. They kind of keep a nice texture. Folding the bread like this kind of holds everything in when you bake it, and also makes it pretty easy to transport and eat.
Today I'm dropping off meals. With our partners, we have compiled a list. Myself and other people will be dropping them off on the doorstep. Often our clientele are marginalized, they're on the fringes of society. We wanted to ensure that no one was left behind.
Hey, buddy, how are you? Even though COVID comes, your bills still continue to come. So of course one of those bills is feeding yourself and feeding your family. The Safe Harbor Outreach Project provided some Meals on Wheels for sex workers in our community who are struggling with food security. Sex workers were challenged by this again because they didn't have some of the same supports or government supports that you or I might have. It became even more challenging for them.
Sex workers found it very hard because they couldn't avail of a lot of the federal government services like the CERB and all of that. There were organizations across Canada that popped up to help sex workers, but a lot of sex workers had to change the way they did their work. A lot of people went to OnlyFans. A lot of people still tried to engage in sex work, which was putting their health and safety at risk.
We formed some partnerships and we were providing drop-off services on a regular basis. I also think there was a real clear message from the community that we care about you, we see you, we understand that you're struggling.
My name is Chelsea Terra and I am a stripper. It's now being referred to as a sex trade and I am considered a sex worker. I had my daughter when I was 15. I started dancing underage and I was very motivated to stay off the system and prove that I could do it independently. That was a huge motivator for me to beat the stereotype of teenage moms, to beat the stereotype of strippers, and my whole life has basically been this huge fuel of fighting the stereotype. I mean, I can't really say I've met any other woman. In all these years, I've worked in probably 100 clubs and I've never met another woman who survived through it all happily. So that's sad and speaks volumes, right? They want comfort food. They're going through, emotional chaos every single day. They feel very unsupported, rejected by society, and they want to feel good. It's the embrace from society that they would feel that I believe would speak moving volumes.
We got a great day for deliveries, and I'm headed to my first house. One thing I'd like to see changed is continued funding so that we can keep doing the good work that we're doing.
I would like to see more services that are specifically for people in these groups.
If we could decrease the stigma around this work, if we could recognize sex work as legitimate work in our community, that would have such a great effect on sex workers' lives.
If we just found a way to be able to treat every single human being with some basic dignity and respect, not only people engaged in the sex trade, but all of us, we'd be a better society.
Well, they were here in St. John's yesterday, but today Prince Charles and his wife Camilla toured Ottawa. This is the second day of their Canadian visit, and it was another busy one. The royals paid their respects at the National War Memorial. They visited a Ukrainian cathedral to meet with members of the Ukrainian Canadian community and watched the RCMP musical ride. David Cochran has the details.
The day started by remembering the great conflicts of the past, with a lament and a wreath laying at the National War Memorial. But as the day unfolded, it focused on the great conflict of the moment. Notably, a visit to a Ukrainian cathedral, where the royal couple took part in a traditional prayer service, a clear expression of solidarity.
And thanks for your desiring and finding time to visit us during the war waged by Russian Federation against our ancestral homeland, Ukraine.
The prince and the duchess were given the traditional Ukrainian greeting of bread and salt. Camilla took some time to decorate Ukrainian eggs as the royal couple went over their scheduled time to meet with members of the Ukrainian community. This trip isn't all about ceremony. There's a tourism component as well. And in Ottawa, that means a visit here to the Byward Market and, of course, a stop at Beaver Tails.
They've got to try the beaver tail. It's a staple.
And so they did, or at least they looked at some beaver tails. Members of the royal family typically don't eat fried dough smothered in toppings while on camera.
It was so wonderful. I've always been into like the royals and just the royal family in general.
But the crowd here didn't come to watch the royals eat. They just came to watch them, as they watched the pageantry and tradition of a country where the current prince will be the future king. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
Looked like a beautiful day up there. Well, royals are often presented with presents during their travels, and some are certainly more unique than others.
I told him how I had portrayed him and the essence that I wanted to show, and I felt that I had done it. And when I saw him in person, I thought, yep, that's it.
Yes, that is him, all right. One of the gifts presented yesterday was this, a bust of the prince and his mother, Queen Elizabeth, created by that artist from Manitoba. Everything is made of wool, from their eyes to their teeth to the Queen's pearls. The wool busts were presented during a knitting circle at Government House yesterday. The royals were joined by knitters from Nonia, who had a gift of their own for the prince. The CBC's Thomas Dagla visited Nonia ahead of that big visit.
Going to be part of the event at Government House in partnership with the Campaign for Wool Canada. And as you may know, the Prince founded the Campaign for Wool a number of years ago, and it's to promote the versatility and sustainability of wool, which is obviously our key fiber that we work with. So we will have about 10 Nonia knitters in a sort of knitters circle. They'll be working on some of all the different things you see around here. And I expect that he will be interested in finding out about their knitting skills, how they learn to knit, and how they work with wool, how they enjoy working with wool.
Has Nonia ever had an event like this where knitters are going to be knitting in front of heir to the throne?
No, definitely. This will be the closest, most tangible contact that we have had for sure. We have presented, as I mentioned, a number of gifts, and in fact one of the gifts that we will be presenting is a replica of the sweater that was made to present to the Queen at the birth of Prince Charles, which of course was over 70 years ago. So many of our gifts, of course, have been sent to England, so it would be very nice to be able to present a number of things in person.
What is it that you hope that people learn about this place?
About the quality and durability of hand-knit goods from wool. Nonia sweaters will last a lifetime, and we have had many examples of that. People donating back to us sweaters that were knit 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
Seriously?
Yeah, so wool is a marvelous fabric that way, a marvelous fiber. It's long-lasting and sustainable.
Wow, I just love those wool busts.
Yeah.
I wonder what he thought about it. It did kind of look
Creepy?
a little creepy.
A little creepy, yeah.
A little bit creepy,
But
but
that's
still
okay.
very cool. Can you imagine like all of the work that went into like
Yes.
making the eyes and the teeth and the pearls? Just incredible.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
speaking of wool, it was kind of sweater weather earlier today, but
Yes,
it has certainly warmed up. I'm looking forward to getting off work and going out and feeling that 15 degrees out there tonight. How's it looking in the long range?
It's funny how we get excited about 15 degrees.
I know.
Yeah, that is, above where we should be sitting this time of year, and it does look like as we head towards the weekend, I've been talking about it, what is it now, Wednesday, for a couple of days, that we are going to see a warm up. So let's see what's going to happen on Friday. Looks like a pretty beautiful Friday for most areas. We're talking about sunshine or a mix of sun and cloud for a good chunk of the island, and those temperatures anywhere from 12 to 18 degrees, a little cooler for the northern peninsula. Still though in those double digits at 10 degrees. That sunshine will certainly feel lovely. And then we do have the chance of a few showers in the morning for Lab City, and then you should see some sunshine, and then you're going to see the chance of some more showers as we move into the evening hours on Friday. So future tracker showing that fairly nicely on Friday evening. Those showers are going to work their way across the Big Land, even towards the northern peninsula as we get into Saturday morning, and then the showers will become a bit more numerous as we head into the afternoon on Saturday. Most of the Big Land will be under the influence of this area of low pressure to the north, and that means cloudy skies and the chance of showers through the day. Now, as we get into the evening hours and overnight, it does look like most of the island will see those showers move through. It shouldn't be too heavy, but we're still looking at that chance of showers, and those temperatures will still be in the teens. Now, southwest maybe into the single digits at this point, but flirting with the 20-degree mark through central, 15 degrees in St. John's. But again, we will see those showers as the evening and overnight rolls along. Up across Labrador, temperatures in the double digits for you as well. Lab City 14 degrees on Saturday, a little bit cooler for northern Labrador at 8 degrees. And the rest of the Big Land should be sitting somewhere between 10 to 13 degrees. Now, this warm-ish weather should stick around through a good chunk of the weekend, although it does look a bit unsettled. So by Sunday morning, still looking at that chance of showers. We may see some sun peek out at times, but overall those temperatures should be about 16 degrees, and not a whole lot of movement in those temperatures either. So overnight lows dipping to about 12 degrees through the overnight, and then back to another potential 20-degree day for St. John's and Eastern Newfoundland as we head into Monday as well. But we will see a big drop in that temperature as we head into the evening hours. But again, unsettled through the day. Now for central Newfoundland, you're closer to the mid-20s as we get towards the end of the long weekend. However, as you can see, that chance of showers will stick around with you. It's not going to be a washout by any means. You still see some sunshine, but still looking at those unsettled conditions. And then for western Newfoundland, you're looking at 22 by Sunday, Monday at about 18 degrees, but again, with that chance of showers. Now for eastern Labrador, you'll stay in the anywhere from 10 to 14 degrees, and even in western Labrador as well. However, cloudy skies on Sunday, and Monday looking at 10 degrees. I thought this was a great shot. Shades of Blue in Perry's Cove. Lisa shared this great shot with us, and if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that's a lovely picture. Lisa, thank you so much for sending that in.
Love it when you see those shades of blue.
Yes, for sure. Well, that's it for us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope we don't all have nightmares about the wool busts this evening. I might be thinking about it a bit later. Anyways, thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.